Hello, my name is Ayinde Bradford, and I am about to explain piece number 169, Wall Plaque from Oba's Palace. First, I will talk about the place and the people behind this piece and its history. This artwork was created in the time of the Benin Empire during the 16th century. The area covered part of what is now southern Nigeria. The people that inhabited this area are known as the Edo people. The name Edo clusters many West African tribes into one clan, but the main tribe of this society was called Bini. Edo was the name of its capital. It is now known as Benin City. Most people to this day living in Benin accept Bini as a description of their nationality and heritage. The Benin Empire was developed before the colonization of Africa. It lived from 1180 to 1897. The 15th century marked the golden age of the Benin Empire. The king, which was known as the Oba, had the highest amount of power in the region with the most access to trade, which included trade with Portugal and later England. Portugal traded money, guns, coral, and brass for peppers, oils, ivory, cloth, and stone beads. Trade with the Portuguese declined in the 19th century, and relations with England went south. The empire was destroyed by the British in the punitive expedition of 1897. Before the attack, the Oba had a monopoly over trade. Britain pressured the empire, but it remained independent. Britain planned to open up more trade and ultimately take power over the empire. When Britain formed a treaty to open trade and greater influence, the Oba signed it, but did not follow up due to his disagreements with his duties. This was purposely taken as a hostile act, which gave Britain jurisdiction for the attack, the looting of the city, and the killing of many people in southern Nigeria. Currently, this piece, and others like it, are being debated over whether they should be returned to Nigeria or if they should be kept in museums for the whole world to see them. This plaque is a brass casting created in the 16th century. This plaque was one of at least 900. They were placed next to each other as decoration around the court of Benin. They visually told the history of the king's lineages through time. Everything in these plaques communicated the wealth and military status of the people and kings depicted. This piece was created using the lost wax casting technique. In this, a malleable wax version of the final creation is formed. Then, it is covered in clay and fired, which melts the wax away. The clay mold is then used for the liquid brass. The brass is poured into the mold to form the shape and harden. After it hardens, the clay is removed and the brass piece is left over as the piece of artwork. This piece depicts an Oba and his servants, who are holding either fans or shields to protect the king. In real time, this Oba would have been traveling with his attendants, warriors, aka bodyguards, high priest, and/or other important figures in the community. However, horseback was not common in West Africa, which leads historians to believe that this Oba may have been Oba Esigi. Esigi was the first king to be recorded and seen on a horse or donkey. Leopards were a sign of aggression and stealth in this society. In this casting, the Oba wears a leopard tooth necklace as a representation of his power. The slaves and the king are put in hierarchical scale. The size of these figures represent the importance of the Oba in relation to his attendants. Even the fact that the Oba is on horseback demonstrates that his authority will not touch the ground. There is not much facial distinction between the figures. Only the size, placement, and dress indicate who is what. The faces are large with heavily pronounced features, except for the eyebrows. The figures feel heavy because of the brass. There are elaborate details in the garments, with lots of markings and lines that give detail and information about the piece. There are rosette shapes in the background of this plaque, which is shown at the photo on the right. These demonstrate Christian crucifixes through Portugal coming to Africa through interactions and trade. Every detail in these plaques give a little more information as to who was who and what was happening during that time. My first cross-cultural comparison. This is number 13, the palette of King Narmer from pre-dynastic Egypt. Both of these are similar in that they use hierarchical perspective to represent authority. In both pieces, the troops and slaves are put in a smaller size to show less importance. In fact, even on the back of this palette, the enemy is the same size as the king to show that he is a formidable opponent and more important than his own slave. In this plaque, the attendants are shorter to show how important the king is himself. The forms of both people in both pieces are pretty simple in shape. However, the plaque puts more detail in the clothing. Both record the history and visually explain why these events are so important to the king's foundation. They were both part of the daily life of the kings. One was a makeup palette, and the other decorated the king's home. I guess you could say both of them stroked egos, since both of them displayed the king in his light and in his glory every time the king saw it himself. Is a little bit of a stretch, but it is number 30, Audience Hall of Darius and Xerxes, which is Persian. Both of these works were functioned to receive guests and impress the visitors who came to the palace or the hall. The plaques fascinated Dutch visitors and Portuguese traders when they came to the empire. The hall intimidated other kingdoms and impressed visitors. Both works are located in societal centers of each culture. The audience hall was located in Persepolis, the capital of the Persian Empire from 550 to 330 BC. The place where the plaques were located was in the capital of the empire, Edo. Both works display crossovers of different cultures, and both works ended up being ransacked by another rival. Here are my multiple choice questions. My sources are on the slide after this, but I will end here so that you can read and stop and look at these without having to pause. Thank you for listening.